Let me fix this thing. What is going on here? Cece, I need my arm. All right, let's tweak this thing slightly. Cha-cha-cha. There we go. Put my little cat clip back. I don't know if people can actually see that. It's a little kitty. There's just little
I can't make out.
Tortilla chip bag clips, but it's a cat.
Oh, I see. I see.
Greetings, friends. Welcome back to another episode of Dreamscapes. Today we have our friend Kevin from the Carolinas on the east coast of the USA, and he's here to share a dream with us. So enough jabberjawing from me. I'm going to throw it over to Kevin. Go ahead and tell us your dream whenever you're ready.
All right. So as it starts, I'm in a condo, very nice condo, apartment complex sort of thing. And the window, or I wake up in a bed, feeling a little bit sick, and I decide to stay in for the day. You know, you just don't feel like going to work or whatever, or school is what I had at the time. And I look out the window, and the window's pretty big. It's pretty much a wall for the room. And the room is modern, minimal setting. There's not very much things in it. Maybe just the bed, honestly, and like a hardwood floor. The walls are white, or grayish white kind of thing. And I look out to the window, and it's snowing outside. And what we're in is this big city, but the skyscrapers are arranged sort of like a forest of trees, and it's beautiful almost. You know, like with the white sky. Clouds above, it's snowing, and we're the placement of the room within where we are is about the middle of the city. Okay, and this is more relevant a little bit later, but generally, you didn't need to go down to the bottom of the building to get from building to building. There were scaffolding and bridges connecting the tops and the middles of all the buildings. You didn't quite see it from the window, but later on, that detail will be more relevant, I guess. But I wake up and I have a younger sister in this condo, and she's worse than I am. I'm just a little bit sick, maybe have a minor cold. A seasonal cold kind of thing. She's like almost dying, like really rough kind of thing. I do not have a younger sister. I have a older sister in real life. This is just a random younger sister. She somewhat resembles my older sister, but not like completely. So seeing her in her condition, I decide to leave the condo and cross these scaffoldings, these bridges from building to building. The thing was, I had to be careful because there were monsters roaming around the city, and these monsters were pretty big. They were like they were, in a sense, they swam through the air, and they were sort of whale-like, like as large as whales, and they kind of swam in that kind of pattern, I guess is how to say it. And I had to be very careful because, you know, they were just going to gobble me up or something like that. And I had to look around, and I found somebody on the roof of another building, and there was I don't know what they're called, but it's like a section of the top of the building, sort of like where the air conditioning unit and all the utility stuff is. It's like on one side, I have the edge of the other building right here, and then there's another skyscraper going all the way up. And I find him leaned up against this utility section of the building. And he's dead, dying, I don't quite remember. And he's rough. And as I examine him and look at him, I feel the presence of a monster, and I see the shadow kind of pass over me as I'm looking at the body. It just like comes over, and I like duck and get scared. The guy's gone and dead, and I don't. So I decide to head back to the condo, make my way back to the condo. And when I get back to the condo, I find my younger sister dead. And at that time, I have an incredible amount of guilt and sorrow. And somewhat, the guilt comes from, like, I think the whole thing's my fault. Like, the dead, like, because it felt like everybody was dying. I didn't just find that guy randomly, but it was like everybody was dying, and it was like a disease that was spreading across the world, and it was somewhat my fault in a sense. And in that moment, the scene changes. It kind of cuts away. I'm no longer the man in the condo, but I am just an observer from bird's eye view. I go to a field that's near the city. It's a very smooth field. There's no snow on it. It's just kind of grass. What happens is, like, you know how, like, when something comes out of the ground, it kind of like tears apart the soil in, like, chunks of rock. Something kind of emerged out of that soil like that. And it kind of floated horizontally up. And it was the closest thing I could think to what it looks like is Evangelion Unit 1, if you've ever seen that anime. It wasn't purple, I wouldn't say, but it was kind of like a white and red color. It looked very much like it, kind of like an organic machine type of thing, you know. It rose out of the ground. It floated horizontally, sort of thing. And what it yelled, it kind of proclaimed in a very terrifying way, I have been reborn. And the character of how it said it was sort of like it was rubbing it in my face, like it knew my desires and my goals and stuff like that, like, better than I did almost. And like it's coming back to life, destroyed and shattered all of that, you know. So I'm close to the end, and the robot kind of floats up a little bit, and then a copy forms in front of it. The original copy stops moving, but this floats in front of that. And then that repeats, so another copy forms in front of that, and then that floats a little bit. And it forms sort of like a pattern, but as it's doing this, it's transforming and changing and getting smaller. And the path of that stuff lands on the tallest skyscraper in the city. And it by the end of it, when it lands, it's the size of a man, a person. And it cuts again. I'm back in my apartment. I'm looking out through the window. And instead of the forest arrangement, the skyscrapers are now lined up, and kind of like an interesting arrangement. Like, they're kind of staggered. Like, each row is staggered, but it's like they're lined up horizontally with their, like, there'll be one right here, and they'll be lined up horizontally, and then there'll be another on the side, and they're lined up, but they're also lined up this way too in rows. So it's a hard arrangement to describe. And it's nighttime, and I see the path of those robots. I call them shills or whatever, but they're underneath a crescent moon, pointing up like this, and the horizon, like, you know, in Twilight, where, like, there's a changing color gradient kind of thing. The color gradient is like white, red, and then black. Okay, so it has that kind of color to it. And then it cuts again. I'm at the base of the tallest tower, okay, where the robot shells or whatever landed. And I see a grave to my left, okay, and it's kind of a futuristic looking grave. It's like, no, it's not, or it's like very, very nice and modern kind of looking. But there's a there's an effect over the grave. I don't know if you ever played Dark Souls.
I have not, but I've seen it a few times.
I don't know how to describe it, but it's like a green effect to it. It's very nice and kind of almost warm looking green, and it's like a lighting effect, kind of streaks of green light kind of hovering over this. It doesn't look like an aurora, but it's like they're distinct lines of light that you can see that are kind of mixed about. There's an effect on Dark Souls. I don't know if your viewers might know, but it's like, I think once you have a stamina ring, it constantly, or some sort of equipment, it looks like that.
Maybe I'll go try and look that up and see if I can put a graphic on the screen, like right during this part. We'll see. We'll see if I can do something like that.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah. I had this intuition in the dream that grave was my younger sister's grave, and the green light to me indicated that there might be a chance to bring her back and kind of undo everything, undo all the because it felt like this was the end of the apocalypse happened and this is the end of it. But I had the chance to rewrite it in a sense with that grave, and I was at the base of the tower, just about to enter it, kind of like the first level of a video game or something like that, or like the last level of a video game. But I'm at the start of it, and then the dream. I wake up.
Okay.
Do you need me to clarify anything or go back over a detail?
That's what we do for the second part. Absolutely, yeah. Okay, well, if you're ready, now is the third phase where we kind of get into what the hell does it all mean. I don't know. Any questions? I'm just kidding. No, what I like to do is ask people, right? I'd like to ask. I don't know. Good luck. Thanks for watching. I'd like to ask people if they have impressions. This gets a little more complicated, I suppose, with this one because you had it a while ago. You've had a long time to think about it. You probably have your own ideas. So while I was taking a break there, I was thinking to myself, is it better to ask you to tell me what you think, which is usually what I do, or is it better to do most of my own suggestions because you've already had other people tell you things? I don't know. I mean, do you have any thoughts on just that general idea of the process for the next step?
I mean, I guess we could go back and forth over each symbol kind of thing.
Yeah.
And or each beat, and maybe we could exchange kind of, maybe I start with my idea on what it means, and then you start with your idea, and then the next one you start, and then I'll follow.
Yeah.
So forth and so on.
It's a pretty consistent part of my process that if it's meaningful to you, it's meaningful. My impressions are just to kind of get you to points of epiphany where you put some pieces together and you're like, oh yeah, that. And right. So if you've already had those, it's fine to share them.
Right. What before we start, what to you specifically? I already said that the clearing of the trees and the buildings and seeing the crescent moon and stuff, that was the most striking thing to me in the dream.
Yeah.
And probably, for you, what would you say was the most striking thing, or what do you think? What's your gander on what's the
Oh, here he comes. There he is. He's going to lay on the papers. Easy boy. That's okay. Yeah, that did jump out to me as this very well composed shot. It's trying to show you something very specific. Here's the big, so to speak, the big picture through the big window.
Picture. Right.
After you've already been through this journey of the separate elements. Stand out to me in terms of,
I don't know a good word for it.
Yeah.
Narrative beat, I guess.
Elements.
Yeah.
There is this idea of being on a journey of having a purpose or a desired goal that you're trying to accomplish, and having a variety of obstacles, complications, dangers along the way and narrow bridges and monsters and gloating figures bursting forth, so to speak. There's this the cityscape. I mean, if it's okay to say, we talked before a little bit about what you were going through at the time, it's okay to say the general. So the general context is usually very relevant to the dream. You're saying you were dealing with depression and some suicidal thoughts at that time, and this was actually a dream you had relatively near the beginning of the onset of some of those problems, and that it carried on for a while afterwards, resolved now. But that experience of maybe realizing what you were facing, what was coming upon you, was the beginning of, I mean, this apocalyptic, everyone around you is dying. I think very much related to your thoughts of death in general, maybe your thoughts specifically of your own personal apocalypse. You could end the world. You could end your experience of the world. So we've got that going on in the dream, and you've also seen how it's affecting other people around you. So that's probably part of your thought process at the time was, I'm not going to be the only one affected by this apocalypse. It's going to hurt other people. And then the journeys may be speaking to how you're viewing. So speaking of this long view down this very open middle path where you've, in the moon and all that stuff. So kind of bringing it back to that imagery is that may be the kind of iconic representation in your mind of what you were looking down the road to experiencing in this process, if that kind of makes sense. I don't know if you had anyone kind of bring your attention to it in that regard before.
No. So you're saying that the winding of the trees and stuff like that, that was, if there was anything, like you said, you didn't buy the prophetic nature of stuff, but it was kind of like a guess of the future. I don't know a good word for it. Is that what you're saying? Your mind's
vision, because there is that change in the landscape too, and that's anytime something fixed in the real world, we would assume buildings don't recompose themselves from disorderly to orderly. Any kind of change of that nature in otherwise fixed objects usually has some kind of significance, like literally the landscape itself and the objects that compose the landscape have altered. So you had this almost very, there's something to do with laying in bed and having this, I feel sick. And you did in real life, mental sickness is physical in a very real way, or at least it feels not much dissimilar from being ill in any other kind of way. And there's this, you're lying in bed. It's a place of comfort and rest. And you've got this big view on the world out there. And what you're seeing is this kind of peaceful, calm, forest-like nature of even a concrete and steel and glass cityscape. But that later, after you've gone through this journey of trying to solve the problem in your mind in the arc of the dream, now everything has composed itself into this very kind of rigid order of things that are no longer kind of haphazard like trees would grow in a forest, but very orderly arrangement and procession of buildings. So there's something about that suggests to me finding order in your own mind, setting your mind, settling your mind on an orderly understanding of what you're going through. And was this because a lot of people, different for everyone, but it's not uncommon that people have a lot of, say, symptoms of depression before they realize, oh, I'm depressed. Oh, these aren't just idle thoughts of life is hard, but I'm actually having major depression, suicidal thoughts, that kind of thing. And that there might be something to do with that, the acceptance that is happening to you, that then this dream pops up to say, okay, now that I see what's going on, what do I think about it? How do I feel about it? So does it seem like this dream is speaking to that?
Maybe.
Seeing yourself,
definitely.
Seeing yourself on this road forward of like, okay, now what? What's going to happen to me now that I know this thing is happening? What's going to be the result? How am I going to come out of this? Or am I going to come out of it?
Right. Yeah. And, yeah. The thing about the robot and its proclamation, I mean, we're skipping around, in some sense.
Sure.
But,
Yeah, that's fine.
I don't know if we should start at the start, and stuff like that.
Sometimes I do.
Like,
sometimes whatever stands out to a person, that's where I go first.
The proclamation made, I guess it's the best way to say it.
Sure.
Because it was a masculine vibe to it, It's sort of like it was speaking towards that kind of like, I don't know how to put it. I guess that idea of depression and suicide, it was like speaking to it. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, you described it as this thing gloating in a way in victory over you personally, directed it, and you're like, what are you being so mean? What are you celebrating in the first place? Why are you directing it at me? What the hell is going on here? So there could be a representation there of depression itself, this object being born out of the landscape, from bursting forth from the earth itself, from the physical environment, and again, I keep drawing my mind back to this idea of accepting your situation, identifying, okay, this is what's happening to me. So if there's something that in the robot, that it's announcing that it's got a hold of you in a way, that it has power over you. And that could be also what your mind was saying in that time of like, I didn't choose this. I didn't ask for it. I didn't really cause it to happen. It is happening, and it's got me. And not only that, it seems to have this kind of malicious glee with putting me in a position where it's going to win and I can't stop it. Right. Which is which is very much what depression and feels like, is that this thing is happening to you that is, you didn't cause it, you can't cure it necessarily, or rather you don't have control over it in that way. It is something that is happening to you versus something you're doing to yourself.
To some extent, though, I would say the character of my depression was habits I was taking. There was a satisfaction I had fantasizing about that. As twisted as it sounds, as terrible as it sounds, it was like sort of comfort.
Yeah, for sure.
And why I kept, it's kind of like eating pie. Like you can't do that all the time because you're gonna get a bunch of health problems. You can't eat it all day, definitely. And it was kind of that, there was a little bit of that in the robot, like that kind of like, I don't know if I'm painting the impression onto it, or that's actually what I'm getting from it or not. But like there was a little bit of like that. It wasn't comfort, is what I mean, but like maybe it knew that I was doing that intentionally.
Yeah.
And because I was doing that intentionally, now he's got power over me. That kind of guilt.
Yeah.
Maybe,
Well, there is, as much as, specifically, what am I trying to say? There's situational depression, clinical depression, which is, anyway, situational depression, you can change your habits, your lifestyle. I like to describe it as Jews in Auschwitz, situational depression. Of course, they're miserable. They're being held in a concentration camp. They're being starved and beaten. Anybody would be majorly depressed under that. But then there's like, my life is good. I got money. I got women. I got everything I could hope for. I'm eating 3 square meals a day and they're delicious. And I hate it. I hate all of it. It's miserable. I'm not happy. That's more of the chemical, classic, clinical depression side of things.
Definitely.
But okay, so now we're on that. We're in that sphere in general. There are things you can do to make it worse and make it better. And there's So maybe the robot, in that sense is gloating a bit that you're feeding it, or that you're not caused it to be born, but caused it to say feeding it gave it the power or gave it the ability to erupt forth and actually take off and multiply and be more substantial in a human form. Yeah. So I think there's definitely something there. Yeah.
Oh.
If it resonates with you. That's...
Right. And do you mind if I interject with
Please,
what I think of the robot symbol?
Yeah.
That occurs throughout my dreams. Well, I thought of this a while ago. I don't know how accurate it is, but I'm often criticized by friends, families, acquaintances for overthinking.
Oh.
Thinking too deeply into things and stuff. I do jujitsu on the side, martial arts, and my coach says that I'm a very strategic thinking kind of I don't really have flow with my game. It's more just a methodical, strategic, tactical approach in how I do it. And I think what the robot, in some sense, what the machine represents, is that part of me that is logical, very logical and methodical and structured and stuff like that.
Yeah.
If that is a personality, that's what the robot, in some sense, represents. And what I want to kind of think, why, but the robot from the dream is a little bit different. Not how it represents. Well, I don't know, actually. And that's just the character of what I'm saying is, I guess it only represents those ideas in character, not necessarily what they do in the dream necessarily. Right. Yeah,
for sure. And then you can have something that represents a theme, like you said, you were having all these multiple dreams or multiple, repeating imagery of robotic-like, machine-like things throughout the dream. And that represents a certain idea. And then to have even that idea itself, but also blended and resurrected, reincarnated, continued, it could be it's partly this, but it's also something else at the same time. It's the blending of these two things. There's something going on there.
Definitely, yeah.
I don't know that I have all the right words to try to express what I'm even saying. It's it is what it always has been, but now it's also something else. In that sense. Yeah. Or it's another extension or variation on a theme is, I guess, what I was trying to say. Something like that. Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, and then I don't want to get the stuck on the idea that each image only means one thing, but very often they mean
definitely
more than one thing. For sure. There is also something about this. I think there's a piece of you in the robot. It also represents a part of you or a view of yourself, and how you.
What makes you say that specifically? What? Not that I disagree or anything like that, but just what would you say supports that exactly?
Yeah, and then in what way is what I was. Whoops. Just kick my mic stand. Part of it is that it's announcing this victory over you, and I think there's an intimate connection there with the reason it came out of there, but also that it iterates itself smaller and smaller until it becomes human, and that you feel responsible to say confront it to change the circumstance of the world. So if this dream is about your coming to terms with feeling depressed and how it could end your world, and that there's this sense that there's it's basically like the entire landscape and everything you're experiencing in there is a part of you in a way. But it isn't just that broad. It's this idea that it's been reduced to a human a very powerful human, but nonetheless a human-sized problem, or a problem in the shape of a human, and that's all coming from within you, and you're in a sense going on this quest, engaging in this struggle, reaching towards this goal to defeat this thing that's inside you, this part of yourself that is trying to end your world when you don't really want that. So it's kind of a vague connection. It's not like the robot is literally you, but in the sense that it's all kind of part. I don't know if that's kind of making sense a little bit.
Oh no, definitely. Yeah. I could see that. Yeah. But I get the thing though, and I want, like, if I could put my foot in the crazy space for a little bit, or
sure, go right ahead. It's all entertaining.
Crazy space. I don't know if you've ever read Aeon by Carl Jung.
I've not read a lot of source material. I should read more, but I got a reading list like ridiculously long.
I understand mine's pretty big, and I haven't gone.
Yeah,
but
long story short, not yet. Yeah,
the book is where, like, if you read it first before anything else, it's like Jung was smoking DMT. Like, it's just it is, because he takes, because oddly enough, I mean, like, he took astrology and alchemy somewhat seriously. He took those seriously in some sense. Not that they were, like horoscope wise or like alchemy, but like they were dream-like ideas. Like, alchemy was the dream of these scientists, or very, very smart people that didn't really know what was going on. And they were trying to figure out something about the world, like figure something out about themselves, what they could do about themselves through the world, right? They were trying to turn lead into gold, right? So they're trying to turn themselves lead and find the gold in there, something like that.
For sure,
and
yeah.
Like, right. In Aeon, he takes those ideas and stuff, and like, he goes really crazy. But he talks about the symbol of the Antichrist, and that the Antichrist is the inversion of Christ. I'm butchering it. If anybody's actually really familiar with this, like, they're like, okay. "Oh, you were such an idiot." But
you're sharing your understanding for what it's worth.
Understanding,
for sure.
Yeah, for what it's worth. Basically that the Christ symbol is a symbol of the self, and like who and from what I got of Antichrist is also a symbol of the self, but it's inverted in a sense. Whereas like self as Christ, the idea is it's giving. It's self for everyone. It's like the ultimate selflessness in some sense. Like he gave his life for people. I don't want to step on any toes, on religious toes or anything like that. But like, if you just analyze it from that point, regardless of the metaphysical implications of it, but like just the idea of the story, in that like this was a man that sacrificed himself for everybody, and Antichrist takes that idea and like flips it, so he wants to sacrifice everybody for himself.
Oh yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, it's
this just brought to mind. I don't know if you've watched My Hero Academia.
I've watched a little bit. Yeah.
Well, with spoilers for like the next 30 seconds if you haven't watched it yet. But so there's the kid that gets All Might's power, and his power is one for all.
Right. Yeah.
And the Antichrist, his nemesis is all for one. He steals other people's powers and takes them all for himself. There's very much in there. Yeah. And that's exactly what I was thinking as you're describing, is that giving nature versus the taking nature. And I love, and I've said this before too, the yin yang. I consider that one of the oldest names for God. Before we even had language, this idea of understanding duality, light and dark, day and night, up and down.
Jung is very
opposites.
big on that. Yeah, definitely.
Oh yeah. No,
Union
and
of
it's
opposites and stuff.
great, and especially in order and chaos. The idea of, each
Right.
one neither being superior. That's the thing too, is when you have this wholeness of opposites, it's sometimes better that things are sharp like a knife, and it's sometimes better that things are soft like a pillow. You don't want to sleep on a knife. You don't want to try and cut bread with a pillow. Each thing is superior in its own bailiwick, even if they're complete opposites. So the same with order and chaos. I mean, too much order, things are rigid and cannot change, and they collapse under the weight of their own rigidity in that sense. And if they're too chaotic, there's no form. It's like, in order to think outside the box, there has to be a box. But also you should think outside it, but also you should maintain the idea or the structure of a box.
Safe space
in general. It's like our body has a rigid, skeletal structure, and yet we have all this flexibility, and it's the interplay of those two things, the fluidness and flexibility of the skin and the muscles working in tension against the rigidity of the bones. Yeah, that allows us to move and do what we do. So, I mean, we went way off on different tangents, but I love this stuff too. It's like these are the things we started to understand before we had words to express them, with these concepts, and then we started trying to put them into words. But how does all that relate to your dream? And I think there's so first I wanted to back up.
I wanted to say,
go ahead. Yeah.
The way it relates is, I got that vibe from the robot, is that kind of pure, like the elevation of the self beyond necessary. It's like,
you got a kind of Antichrist vibe from it, that it was the opposite.
Sure, yeah. Like, and not just the opposite of good, but like specifically in the selfish, pure self aspects of it, like. Yeah, something like that.
It had that very malicious vibe of celebrating your pain, and that's kind of how we describe, evil. Like good people, we recognize pain, and we can recognize it in others, and it makes us sad. We don't gloat. I mean, the Schadenfreude of like, you had that coming, you did it to yourself. I warned you, and now I'm kind of going to rub it in a little bit. But this was worse. This was malicious. This was like, like celebrating.
Like he knew what hurt me. Yeah.
And he wanted it to hurt. So first, what I wanted to say, I wanted to go back a little bit to the idea of, you're a little hard on yourself in terms of saying, this, you drew satisfaction or comfort from the idea of being able to die. And what I want to say about that is that suicide is a rational choice. That's not the right way to put it. It is a valid syllogism. Do we say valid? Anyway.
Okay.
If the component...
I kind of understand what
it's a valid syllogism based on a faulty premise, is where I'm going with that. And the idea is that if you are in pain, that is intolerable pain, and it will never stop, therefore stopping it yourself is a completely logical conclusion.
Right.
This cannot endure. Something's got to give. That you end up with that result. And then that can be very comforting. Like, I can stop the pain. It's not, I can stop it myself. It's not that it will never stop on its own, of course, but that it can be stopped some other method. So the faulty premises are that the pain is intolerable and that it will never end, and that in varying degrees. But if we accept those premises as necessarily true, the conclusion's like, well, of course, well, what are you going to do? And there are any number of circumstances in people's life, especially like living in Oregon here, we have the Death with Dignity Act. And we've got people who are like, look, I got cancer. I've had cancer for a long time. It hurts. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm not getting better. There has to literally be the truth of no hope. And then certain conclusions make sense. So, anyone out there listening, please get help if you're having these problems. 99% of the time, I pulled that out of my ass, but most of the time, vast majority of the time, they can be helped and fixed. Chemicals, therapy, all kinds of good stuff. But don't beat yourself up for having these. These are common human experiences. The tragedy of life is immense. Right. There's nothing but just nature shitting on us 24/7. In the last video, I was just talking to a gal. You have to run as fast as you can just to stay in one place in the kingdom of nature. And if you want to get anywhere, you got to run twice as fast. Not everyone can keep that up. It's a tremendous struggle. And no wonder a lot of people give up. Or sit down and got to take a break once in a while. Lots of self-care stuff out there too. So where am I going with all
Amen
this?
to all this. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Now I got to connect it back to what you're going through. Is that I think a lot of these things are this tremendous sense of guilt and responsibility that you're having for causing this is like you blaming yourself for being depressed. If that makes sense, like you realize, or maybe, at least some part of you is realizing, or not realizing. Realizing means seeing what is true, but theorizing that because this is happening to you, it must be caused by you. Therefore, you feel guilty about this potential end of the world scenario. And yet there's a very hopeful part of all this. I mean, not even just right at the end where you realize that there may be hope and that you're going to fight anyway, which actually this is in a sense, maybe a self-fulfilling prophetic dream. But even in the beginning of this, you had not surrendered to the robot. You had not surrendered to the depression. You're actually seeing perhaps this road ahead of you. And I like the orderly building type of thing. It's, in my mind, it's expressing like in the very beginning, your life is a little more peaceful, natural. Things are disarrayed, but in a forest-like way. And now you've gone through this experience where I think the images are saying, settled your mind on putting things where they need to be to open, in a sense, open up this path to where you're going. You had a moment?
Yeah, I know. I see that definitely now. Yeah, I didn't thought of that. Yeah.
That's kind of what it was saying to me. Now, why the moon? Maybe just because the moon's pretty and you love the moon, and I don't know. It could mean something else. Depends on what the moon means to you.
Right. Well, I mean, if you go back to the alchemical symbol, it was silver, right? You know, and what's silver? It's related to gold. It's the wife of gold, or like. The feminine and masculine, yin yang,
sun of the moon,
the opposite, right? It's a feminine symbol. I'm looking out towards a feminine symbol in some sense. And
I think Sailor Moon had the crescent,
right? Yeah, exactly, the exact same, shape, yeah. And maybe that some of the depression was in relation to girl troubles in some sense.
Sure.
Yeah.
Not at all uncommon, actually.
Yeah.
What is it? Was it Bob Marley? No woman, no cry. That's
all right.
There's a lot of truth to that. Yeah. Not universal. Not dogging on anyone. Just that's how it works a lot of the times.
Definitely. But yeah, and so some, definitely, looking at it, organizing it, and zoning in on that idea. Yeah. No.
Yeah, and having these robots of descending and altering shape and size kind of arrayed over this is, you're gonna, if you followed that path that's being shown to you, if you went from where you are looking at it to the end of what you can see, you're gonna pass this arch. You're gonna go beyond whatever the robot represents, and maybe it's this. The idea that this was not the end of the dream, but that imagery occurred right before you saw all that happen, and then you're at the base of the building with the grave and the image or symbol of responsibility for the death that you think you may have caused, and this so it is like you were in that room where this all started, where you first had the idea of, I'm sick, everybody's sick, the whole world is dying. Now you're back in that room, you see the path, and then boom, you're on the path. You're at the tower to confront the negative, powerful thing that's encouraged by both the sense of responsibility to fix it and the hope that what you're doing might have a positive effect, might actually succeed, however daunting it sounds. A lot of times the order of those things in the dream, they're being triggered one after the other,
definitely
opening those concepts in your mind. So I don't know if that speaks to you in any way or relates to other parts of the
dream. The relation of seeing that and then cuts. That I haven't thought of that before. Yeah, no, I'm just trying to process it in a little bit, but yeah,
Sure.
I haven't thought that part through, and what that. Yeah, I guess what I needed probably at the time was just more. Well, it's being more practical. It's taking it a little bit more literally than how I should, but getting ahead of myself maybe a little bit. But maybe there was to go ahead and confront that part, that negative entity of some such, to organize and move away the things that weren't relevant in some sense.
Yeah.
Keep my eye on the prize in some sense, right? And recognizing that put me on that path. It was the simple thing that just put me in the path. Yeah, okay.
Or
you can see that to some extent.
Yeah, or at least the very idea that if you were to accomplish what this image is showing you, which is the clearing of obstacles and the opening of a path. And it's interesting, it wasn't a thoroughfare, it wasn't a blacktop asphalt, it was more of this green natural space, which was so that the buildings were like trees. There was a green space outside the city, but now you've kind of brought the green space into the city in your mind, and the buildings are no longer like trees. Now they're more orderly like buildings. I don't know what to make of that, but I think that's interesting too. This you've brought something with you, which is
like mixing of the two reality, or like thought spaces. That's probably not a good word for it, but like vibe, two vibes, I guess, is probably the better way to put it.
For sure. Yeah. And that's something about that open the path, so to speak, or represents the path itself. This visual representation of seeing where you could go. So we've spent a lot of time on that and the robot. And of course, all that's very powerful too. And we haven't really gotten much into, say, the representation of the monsters, the bridges, I mean, the fact of, say, being in this cityscape to begin with. I mean, do you live in an apartment in a large city, or are you more of a suburbs?
At the time, I was in a condo apartment sort of thing. It was a very nice room I was in. But I wasn't in a big city. I was like in the suburbs of the major city, Raleigh. If I want to be specific.
Sure.
I mean, if you've ever been to Raleigh, it's not the biggest city in the world, but I mean, it's spread out. But yeah.
I think Portland's kind of the same way. We're not the biggest city here, but it's like 1 million people or something like that, and it's lots of tall buildings.
Well, downtown. I mean, that's more than Raleigh. Like, or well.
I could have it wrong, but I think it's like about 1 million.
Yeah, me too.
Somewhere close there.
Yeah. But yeah, but I was in the suburbs of that city, gotcha. But I was on like the 4th floor of a nice apartment, semi-nice apartment. You know?
Okay, so there's kind of a reality connection there ish.
And the window of that condo was big. It wasn't as big as the wall, but it was pretty sizable. I've lived in the country for a good. I don't know if I have an accent or anything like that.
Not that I can tell. But, yeah.
Not that, okay. All right. But it's southern part of that county, and I grew up in a house that was surrounded by trees, and I spent a little time in the suburbs when I was a little bit younger, but like from 10 on to when I was about like 20. I lived in the woods pretty much, and it was in a more southern area. I've always wanted to move to the city. I've always wanted to live in the city. I'm not currently, if I am in a city, it's not a very big one.
Yeah, I'm not much of a living in a condo downtown type of guy. I'm like even the suburbs are. I want to get out in the country. I did. I went looking for homes a little while ago, but couldn't make it work. But I want to be I want to have my own little farm and some goats or something. Just that kind of thing appeals to me.
Yeah. Those are nice. I see pictures of Idaho and Wyoming and some of the nice homes there. They're beautiful.
Yeah.
I can respect that wish.
For sure.
To some extent, probably.
And when you were younger, living out in the country, say, and surrounded by lots of nature and trees and stuff, it was a pretty happy time in general. You have fond memories. It feels peaceful and calm, kind of like how you described.
Positive. Yeah, I didn't really go outside much. I wasn't one of those people. I played a lot of video games and watched anime and TV.
I want to be out in nature, but I don't imagine I'm going to leave my cabin much. That kind of thing. No, this is me too. Yeah. I basically live in this. Live in my garage, and I did
find where we were kind of creepy though. Like, like there's something about the woods. In general.
Well, there's that whole idea, the iconic human fear of going into the woods. That's where the wolves are. That's where you trip and fall. There's no one to save you, or a tree falls on you, or any number of 100 things is going to kill you because it's the deep, dark, scary woods. That's with us from ancient times, but pre-language times. For sure.
That goes really far back. Yeah.
Oh yeah. But it is interesting that say you, and it may not be that strong, but you've started the dream in this comfortable, familiar, pleasant, bringing back imagery, say even from your childhood when things may have been better than they were at that moment for you in life. But then you've got these things come upon you, and what does it mean that say you've got an older sister in real life, but in the dream she's younger? So to have a younger sibling makes you, it kind of increases the level of feeling responsible. And I don't know if in real life you ever sometimes feel like you're still kind of caretaking your older sister, or has it never really been that way with you guys?
She kind of caretaked me a lot when I was younger. Okay. I think older, maybe a little bit. Yeah. Like as we got older, she looks to me for advice much more often than I look to her.
Okay. Yeah, that could be part of that representation.
My 20s on my 18-year-old self on, she kind of looked more to me for advice than the other way around.
Gotcha. And this dream happened kind of after that, a little bit of a role reversal. So in some ways, even though she was older, maybe she's behaved more like a younger sister that looked up to you, so to speak.
Maybe. Yeah. No, I haven't even thought about that. Yeah. No,
a little bit of that. But then that also gives you a tremendous sense of responsibility. Like if you're going to be someone's senpai, that they don't just fetch you stuff. You're obligated to take care of them and teach them the kohai. So when there is that relationship, it's a tremendous sense of responsibility, and then you feel guilt if you fail in that as well. So so that could have been part of that wrapped up with the depression in terms of like, it will hurt her. This apocalypse of the world is going to kill her as much, or kill your ability to help her because you're going to be gone. Yeah.
She's gone through this much worse than I have. Like she's had depressive episodes.
Did she hit it first or since?
She I haven't, as far as I could tell, no. But
she's just
in my
late
teens, early 20s, she would once it would be like seasonal almost kind of thing.
Yeah. Gotcha. And I don't know if you want to say too much about that. We haven't asked her if it's okay, but nobody knows who she is, so I don't know how secretive she is about it or anything, but
true. Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah. Don't want to be broadcasting it, but just the general idea.
So I don't have to cut anything out either.
Definitely,
for sure. No, but that's okay because it's definitely related to personal experience of family dynamics, so that goes into it as well. And the idea of the specific. Sometimes what I forget to do is get into why these dream images in relation to the overarching theme. And I think part of it is going to say something about what you think of the process. What am I trying to say? There was an initial failure of the recognition of needing to seek help, the struggle of going through the motions and having it just be all for nothing. You come back, the guy you found is dead. You looked all over the city. You get back, your sister's dead, and then bam, you're in the robot phase, where now it's gloating over this failure in a sense. But I think there's at that time when you were coming to terms with what was happening to you, you may have already tried some things that didn't work to make yourself feel better or snap yourself out of it. There's an idea of these bridges not being robust. So maybe your connections with other people were not
Definitely. Oh,
tenuous,
you're hitting on something there. Maybe. Yeah.
kind of
No,
light,
I
these
definitely
light,
got a bit of an
thin,
alienation
yeah, these kind of
from
light, thin
from
structures. You're connected, but it's not robust.
not my closest friends, but like I had like groups of friends out there that I I got an alienation from them very like a couple months before this dream that like upset me. I know that, and
Yeah.
like I got the feeling like they really didn't understand me, and I didn't like that. Like it's one thing to not be understood, but it's also like you're trying to be in some sense, and like I
Yeah,
didn't.
it's more like an active rejection rather than an ignorance, huh?
Yeah,
Or a pushing away, in a sense. Like, I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to deal with you. You're not that important to me, type of thing.
maybe, yeah, a little bit of that, yeah, something like that, yeah.
Yeah, and so you may have gone through, if we, again, each object meaning perhaps multiple things, there's a sense some of these
Yeah.
buildings peopling this cityscape, which would, say, be a representation of your life environment in general. These buildings might have also kind of been people in a way, and you're going from one to the next, trying to find a solution to your problem. And you get, I don't know about this. Before I get there, though, also knowing that there's danger in traveling these paths, that there's these monsters out there that, I don't know why Leviathan, just that name comes to mind. Like in like in the Bible, it's represented as a serpent, but it's also been represented, say, in Pinocchio, as a whale. That's the image of
whale,
of
and a giant fish,
yeah, the giant fish, yeah, exactly. Although the
might also be related to Cthulhu.
Exactly. Yeah. These strange serpents in the seas. Yeah. Watch out.
But sorry, go ahead.
No, for sure. No, I think it's all what, and actually, if that's mythology you are aware of, it's going to influence your dream. So it very well could be. But these, the idea that maybe you never saw when you only saw the shadow of it. There's something there too, where there's vague. You knew what they were. You knew what they were, but they were, as you were saying, like that movie monster thing where you never really see it, but it's there and it's dangerous and it could get you. And I don't know if that's also, what kind of danger is that representing? There's dangers to traveling these.
Maybe the danger of the.
Go ahead.
Danger of the. Well, I mean, if we take the symbol of. The towers or the people, like or like that. Maybe it's what? Well, maybe I don't know. My first thought is, understanding me, but I don't quite see that. Like understanding something I don't want them to understand.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I see that, if that clicks as well.
There's a thought that occurred to me while you were thinking as well, is that what are these bridges? It's only while you're, say, on the bridge, while you're traveling this kind of tenuous connection, that the risk exists. So it's almost like the risk is in the process of reaching out, or in relying on, in putting stress on the bridge itself, putting your feet on this narrow path that opens you up to that danger. Like, because you're not in danger inside the buildings. You're only in danger when you're exposed. So there's probably something to do with reaching out to other people, making you vulnerable.
Right.
And there's this the monsters, and maybe this iconic representation of this vulnerability.
Yeah. Like a little bit of, like going outside my comfort zone, being, and in relation to people and looking for help. Yeah. Because I mean, I going back to, like the context of like this depression, I kept it a secret, like the biggest secret. I just told my friends, like my closest friends, July of last year, 2020. This was happening in 2019.
Yeah.
And I asked them if they could tell, and they said no. They couldn't. It was like they one. I was living with a roommate at the time who's still a close friend, and he said, like, when I mentioned it, that, like, yeah, you did act a little bit differently, but I didn't really see it as like a big problem or anything like that. But yeah, there was a lot of, like, I definitely kept it a secret, and part of it was that responsibility, kind of eating myself, feeling guilty about it. I didn't want to have others to know I was thinking or feeling that way.
Yeah.
And so
there's kind of a double-edged sword with that too. Well, not double-edged sword. When I say there's two ways that comes upon us, and one is, I don't want to make this someone else's problem. Then you feel even worse, like burdening other people with what you're going on.
That went through my head. Yeah.
And there's the other flip side of it is, this is embarrassing. I mean, I can't just get my shit together, and I don't want people to know I'm suffering or we feel weak, because we are kind of being dominated by this thing that we can't control, and that's kind of embarrassing too. So there's two reasons why people keep it to themselves, and we do a pretty good job faking a lot of things. I mean, we have long experience putting on masks throughout our life, taking our different roles.
Right. Yeah.
One of those is, I'm the guy that's okay. Everything's fine. Not gonna bother. Not gonna bother because it's not gonna work. Don't want to hurt your feelings. Don't want to be embarrassed. And a lot of those things keep us isolated.
Oh, also make the problem about me, kind of thing. Like a little bit of that too. Yeah.
There's an embarrassment there too of, not only am I, say, weak is how we would view ourselves. I can't handle this on my own. But then asking for help is really hard for people, of like, I can't do this on my own. And that's tied up with making it someone else's problem. It's like, we don't want to burden someone else, but we also don't want that shame of needing to rely on someone else. And this is a lot. It's not that any of these things are inherently burdensome, shameful. This is all, but these are the complicated. And then it's made worse with the depression, saying, well, you don't deserve it anyway, and you should just die because it's all fucking hopeless. And depression is a liar, and it wants to hurt you. Yeah. Like this monster, totally. That wants to gloat over its victory over you.
Right. Yeah.
So it's a way to very much a good way to.
No, there's a lot of things that are connecting. This is really, really interesting, fascinating. Yeah.
That's good. I'm glad. That's that's why I do this. That makes me really happy, honestly, to just have people not only tell me that, but to really have that experience of like, whoa, I'm glad I talked to that guy. I never thought of it that way. I never put those pieces together. Wow. That's huge.
Mostly when I thought about this dream, it's usually been like the last part, like the robot part. Like I didn't really think too much about the initial thing that set it up, kind of thing. And like you said, you've kind of enlightened me on a lot of the things that were important about it. And
and I was real focused down on that stuff too, because a lot of that is the more powerful imagery and a little bit easier to grasp onto. And I'm actually kind of proud of myself that I remembered to go back and look at some of the other stuff, because a lot of times I'll just go, and that's our session. We'll see you next week. That kind of thing. But I never want to cut anybody off. Speaking of which, though, before we take up too much of your time, there's a double-edged sword in that too. Did you want to examine some elements closer again, or get into more things that we didn't touch on? Or do you want to talk a little bit about some other interpretations you've had offered to you, or your own understandings before we talked? I don't know what's most interesting to you. I'm pretty easy.
I got. Let me think for a sec. Just out of curiosity, what's your time frame right now?
It's 3:15 in the afternoon, and I got, for the time being, I got nothing but time. We can go another hour if you wanted to, or we can wrap it up in 5 minutes, whatever you want.
Yeah. We'll play it by ear. I think maybe somewhere between 15 to 45 minutes should be, I think,
sure
enough. Yeah. Okay. So, the interpretations, maybe interpretations, and what I've been offered and stuff like that.
Sure. Yeah. What have other folks told you? I'm curious.
One guy said it was just my representation of a. So I posted this on r/dream interpretation, which is a very rapidly growing sub, by the way. Like, if you guys want to, get a very, very short snippet of what somebody might think your dream means.
Yeah, that's great. I lurk there too. I may have found some people there to talk to.
He said it was an angel, and like he took it more literally how he meant it. But like if you take it, just the symbol of angel is, angel is kind of like a ideal or value that you show reverence to in some sense. We could talk all day about metaphysical things, and we don't really have evidence for them, but we can talk philosophically or logically about like ideal and something like that, and that like this new ideal came to life in my psyche in some sense, and it was transforming everything. It was and like from what I get on dream interpretation, RSI dream interpretation, is they take death in dreams as more neutral. Like from what I get from you is like you take it as more maybe it means more than just what it means, but it's also somewhat negative. Like to me, I get the impression like everybody thinks of it as a neutral idea, and I guess it can be in some sense, sure. But
I guess the impression I got from you was the maliciousness of it. It didn't seem like it was indifferent. So I was going with your feeling from that object of like, okay, how does that relate? But if we go with, say, the birth of an angel, and maybe the gloating wasn't malicious, or maybe that's one way to understand it. But the other is it was announcing a victory over you, or at least a part of you, some part of you that had to die so that some other part could be born. And then again, it would still kind of be you, or a representation of you, or iconic of an aspiration or some change you were reaching for. That very well could be as well. Yeah, because sometimes we got to kill off certain ideas of ourselves in our imagination to then let other ideas be born. And right. Yeah,
we don't really understand how that works very much. How neurons just come together and like they stop thinking one thing and go to But and if we take that idea, and like what I did is I kind of did some of my own thinking with that, like what is this new ideal, and like the kind of idea of the selfish, the Antichrist vibe, that pure selfishness, that nation of the self beyond what's right or just or whatever you want to say. It was maybe a temptation,
sure,
in some sense, to be, because like there was, I'm going to get into a little bit more details of the context of what was happening to me at the time. Like I had this acquaintance of friends, and it was me being extroverted. It was me, like I threw a party earlier in the year that was going good, but ended really terribly. Somebody almost died.
Oh shit!
Alcohol poisoning and stuff like that, and it was like a college party, sort of thing. And I had a lot of like acquaintances and friends and stuff like that. And I got an alienation from them as after like. As time went on, like after this party happened more in March, I want to say. End of March, I want to say. And the alienation happened sometime in like the end of the spring, May, April, some of June, I had that alienation, and I kind of want to draw on like this idea that maybe that there was a temptation to be more selfish than I was acting. Like the reason I got all those friends, the reason I was able to throw that party was I was being selfless. I was being empathetic towards all these people, and trying to provide a fun and entertaining time for them. And that made me popular in some sense, but it wasn't. I never got anything out of it for myself.
Yeah,
was maybe the conclusion I came to.
Wasn't really a
payoff, and the temptation. The temptation, the robot in a sense, gave off the sense of temptation to attempt to take more.
Yeah, for sure. It does offer the potential of an alternative way of acting in the world. And then, so sometimes these potentials present themselves, because we can hold ideas in our mind that we don't endorse. I can say, what would it be like if I go to Hawaii? And I can imagine that. And I don't really like travel or planes, but I can put that thought in my head and say, let's explore this theoretically. And we can do that with ourselves too, in terms of changing our personality. You say, I can just make different decisions. If I did that, what's that going to look like? And maybe there was a part of you that was saying, if I change the way I interact with the world, if I say, allow this robot selfish thing to be born, to erupt forth from the landscape that is me, what would that end up being like? And I think maybe by the end of the dream, you'd kind of come to the conclusion in your own mind, or at least your natural inclination fighting that was to say, I don't think I really want that. I think I'm going to confront that temptation and oppose it, even if I think it might win, even if I think it might be too tempting and I don't even have the power to defeat it in that sense. Yeah. So, and there is a kind of, what is it? We would think of a more selfish person being more likely to gloat. So instead of being, say, malicious and celebrating your pain, that it could have been saying, I'm just happy I won. I've been born. You've allowed me to come into being, and I'm gonna just be, what is it, smug about it, kind of. So that could have been more than I might have been giving you too many words sometimes, or putting my own spin on what you were describing. So I don't. I always wonder if I'm doing that. I do the best I can, of course, but it's always good to get another possibility of it.
If you have it, there's been far and few between. Yeah. So
good. Yeah, I'm always trying there. Yeah. Did you get other suggestions of what some of the symbols could have meant? Just telling, have you told friends, family, other wise counselors you trust, that kind of thing? I've told my mother, but she couldn't make any sense of it. She's much more like metaphysical and like religious about this stuff. I have to constantly tell her that, like, I can't predict the future, or or be careful with that idea, at least. You can't know that for certain, I wouldn't make any. I wouldn't bet the farm on it, so to speak. Even if you're pretty sure. Even if a dream felt really strongly like it means something specific, be careful with that.
But she couldn't make too many heads or tails on it. I went on r/young. I think the person who responded gave a little bit too much of their interpretation. Or like put a little bit too much of their own ideas on it. Like he thought I was distraught about my outlook on my career. Oh, in some sense, in some sense, because I mentioned I was halfway through an engineering degree. He was also an engineer.
Gotcha.
And he said it was a pessimistic. Well, at least the monsters swimming around the city were kind of a pessimistic look on the outlook of my career and my life, in some sense.
Sure. Very well could be. And I completely forgot you mentioned the idea of the engineering thing, which is what you were going through at the time when you had the depression. Is you're in school and you missed a bunch of classes, which you probably felt guilty about that too. You're not taking care of responsibilities.
Definitely,
but the idea of this theme of robots as well goes very well with engineering. Just the idea of confronting this something daunting, something difficult to grasp, even if it's something you enjoy. That what am I trying to say? It's like looking at a really big book and God, you want to read it, but man, it's going to be a pain in the ass to slog through it. As much as you enjoy it, it's a daunting task. So there could be something, I don't know. And it depends if this fits with your mind, but to my mind, those ideas of engineering, robots, of course, those kind of fit together.
Definitely. They click together. And my mom brought it up before, but she didn't bring it up she brought it very up in a literal way, like when I see a robot or something like that, it means like I'm not studying enough engineering, kind
Could
of
be.
just her way of like manipulating me to be a better student.
Yeah. Or if we run with that
yeah.
idea of the guy that's saying that it was a pessimistic view on your career, it could be this. If we focused on that just exclusively, it's okay. How would that apply to the robot? The idea that it would defeat you, that this attempt to master engineering would be unsuccessful, and that this robot would take over, or be this robot of undefeatable engineering would be born from your attempt to master it. So there could be something there too. And again, it could be all wrapped up. It could be all wrapped up in all of these things at the same time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is going to. You cut the other part out because it was just introductions, but I'm going to go back to the guy, Jordan Peterson.
Yeah.
He does say that there's, mental and ideas take the shortest path, right? They're how do you say it? They take the path of least resistance. So if they can take a symbol or an idea and use it in multiple different ways, it'll do that. It saves it energy.
Yeah, represent multiple things at once. Yeah.
Yeah. So definitely.
And it's certainly all those things that are, if things are connected to something else, you see it as one whole picture, even if it's composed of multiple parts that are related. Something like that. I'm not expressing that very well.
Yeah. I got some of it. Yeah.
Sometimes I don't even know what I'm trying to say.
Me neither. Happened like 3 times in this video. So
this one's Baby. She's been on a couple of videos so far.
I gotcha.
We've become the unofficial cat rescue sanctuary for our block. Try and find them homes, and some of them stuck around. Right. So anyway,
I gotcha. That's nice.
Yeah. Oh well, we love. Yeah, we're cat people for sure. They just kind of, you put the food out, you clean their litter box once in a while. They take care of themselves. I love that.
Yeah, I know. And
this one sleeps on my papers. So
right.
So we went through some other suggestions people gave you, and kind of, I could see why they make those connections. That's why I get on. I'd love to give people more feedback on Reddit or in text. People say, can you interpret this? And I'm like, not without a conversation. I got to have this kind of back and forth where I say, was it like this? Was it like that? It just doesn't work. Doesn't work in text. And there's never, to my mind, there's never a single meaning. Like the Dream Dictionary approach, not to dog on anyone. I don't think it's legit. You see a crow in your dream. Is it a crow? Does it always mean you got money coming? What does crow mean to you? What does the color black represent? What was the crow doing? How big was it? All these different things.
Right.
I think
those are important. Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely. And that's just kind of things I can't back and forth questions with people of that.
And when it comes to my mother, she's very big on that. Like kind of like looking up the meaning and like finding it on those places, and like, and like it doesn't necessarily have one meaning, like
for sure. And that doesn't mean that there's no value. And I go back and forth on this too. It's like there are, if you and I share a similar cultural framework, we have similar understandings of what certain objects might mean in that cultural context. And so we can say, here's maybe a common reference. How does that apply here? But we can always start with that common reference. And there's things common to human experience. I mean, the idea of drowning, just iconic or symbolic things. The idea of a tsunami, like in one of my other videos. There's some things you can draw from that, but then it's always going to be, does that resonate with you? Do you get the vibe? And if it doesn't, we go a different way. So, yeah.
Right.
That's my process.
Yeah. Definitely.
Were there more elements of the dream that you wanted to tease apart or look at a little more closely? I'm afraid
maybe the dead man.
Oh yeah. No, I was kind of getting to that. That was where I was going after the the idea of connection. So if we're looking at these buildings maybe as, or at least the bridges as representative of connections between you and other people that aren't very solid and that expose you to danger, there's something in the idea of trying to keep yourself safe from having danger be able to spot you by being in this protected alcove-ish, but it's just kind of the smart move is let's just not walk out in the open because that's exposing myself. But even in there, you find someone, you're looking for help. You find someone who needs help, but you realize you can't even help him. He can't help you. And there's something there with it. This is the imagery, the realization you're having at the end of your process of reaching out, that all you find is death, that all you find is people who can't help you, people that are too busy helping themselves, or they got their own problems, so they got nothing to give.
Right.
I don't know if that's ringing a bell.
Right.
That was kind of what I thought.
Oh, that
originally.
Also, that feeds into the alienation vibe and the selfishness kind of, I see it. Yeah.
Yeah, you go on this journey
Definitely,
reaching out to all these other people, and the end of the journey is they got problems of their own. They got no time for me. Literally, they're dead to me, or I'm dead to them, so to speak. And you've got the end of those connections or relationships with people, and then that brings you back home to confront. Well, I got nowhere else to go, but just to go face my problem.
Yeah. Right. But also, the monster passing over me, right?
Yes.
Right as I realized that. Yeah.
Yeah, and usually it is those sequence of events that the mind's processing this one idea, and what is that? There's that sequence of events, that connection of, was it you realize he died and then the monster passes over, or was it you said it was kind of simultaneously, the shadow passes over, and that's when you realize he's dead. Not that the shadow caused it, but it was that simultaneous thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess the recognition that reaching out, finding, like, I'm most vulnerable maybe when I find somebody that can't help me. I've reached out and I found somebody that can't help me.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, because there's an act of, we were talking about kind of rejection in a way, and that's the big risk is that we're going to expose our emotions, and the emotional pain we're in is going to be made worse by someone saying they don't care, or us being embarrassed that we reached out and we felt burdened. We felt like we were a burden upon them. We feel shame about that too. So yeah, I think a lot of these monsters are those the shame and doubt and
and all the dangers present in reaching out, kind of thing.
That they're going to find you in this process and make it worse, do more damage.
You're right. Yeah.
Something like that stands out.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I can see that. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. That works. Yeah. Oh man, crazy.
I love these moments. Like I saw it too. There's a moment where people go, "Whoa." It's like Keanu Reeves. I know kung fu.
yeah.
That's that moment.
Very much so. Yeah. Oh wow.
Very cool. I don't know if anything else stands out to me. Sorry, son. Come on, give me the papers.
Yeah, I think
that's all my little carrots I made on all the different notes. Yeah, I think we got You feel like we got something? You feel like you got something out of this experience?
Definitely, yeah. Like at least understanding it. If I was going to leave off on anything, I did mention that the robot image changed in some sense. It was self-sacrificing in another dream. It was like I can go into it real quick, but
in a dream that happened later, this same type of robot appeared
very recently too. Yeah, It was like a month ago,
and it had more of a
not the same robot, but a robot.
A robot.
It was,
gotcha.
If you've seen Rogue One, the KSO unit, the tall black, kind of skinny.
Yeah, I remember robot. That. Yeah.
We were at a house that was very important and familiar to me, but there were soldiers moving in on it, and he went outside and like did the like he had like 2 guns and was like just shooting all of them, and I took a position in the upstairs and shot them from far away. He ended up dying, and then I got to him, and I was trying to salvage him and try to like pulled out his memory chip, and like yeah, very self-sacrificing, very different vibe to him. You know, it's very, very different vibe to other robots and machines that I've seen.
Yeah, that is interesting. You got the theme of robots coming back, but their behavior is changing. Like where before they were threatening, menacing, gloating. Now you got one who's sacrificing for you. So I think that's a very positive in a sense of saying you are in a different place. Whatever those robots represent to you, it's going to be shown as a reflection of that new headspace you're in.
Definitely.
Yeah, for sure. That is a good way to wrap it up, and it's a little positive note, a little more, showing people you're okay. Definitely. You're going to be okay. You got through the hard times. You're doing much better now. So I don't want anyone out there to worry. Definitely. Our friend's going to be okay.
Yeah. And if anybody needs help, you know the resources.
For sure. Okay. Yeah. You could always look in the About Me section. I've got links to the National Suicide Hotline and National Alliance on the Mentally Ill. So yeah, if you need help, talk to somebody. It's you're not alone. You are not the first person to experience this, and there's all kinds of help out there. And if you have any dreams you want to interpret, you can talk to me. But don't just talk to me. I'm just one guy doing a thing. There's lots of people out there. Just get some feedback and some thoughts. So. Well, if that works for you, I'll have you hang out a couple minutes after I kill the broadcast, and we'll say goodbye. But I'll just say, hey, thanks again to our friend Kevin for being here, sharing this fantastic dream with us. Nice long episode. I'll chop it down a little bit, but I appreciate you sharing and just being so open about everything. That makes this process so much more meaningful and
Right.
Full. There's a fullness to it when people give a lot of detail. Definitely. So I appreciate that.
My pleasure. My deepest pleasure for you being willing to help me through, talk this through and understand it. I can't find too many people like you that are have the knowledge and the willingness to do this. But thank you very much.
I'm gonna blush now. We're gonna hide it in the filter. So I'll just I'm very bad at goodbyes and ending things, so I'm awkward and whatnot. So I'll just say, hey, this has been another episode of Dreamscapes. Thanks for listening, and you can like, share, subscribe. I got links in there. I published a book and all that good stuff. You know the spiel. We'll see you next time. Thanks.